Hi, guys, and welcome to another episode of the If I Speak podcast. We have a very special guest for this video, Mehul Gupta, who is a long-time friend and one of the very few Manchester City supporters in the world. In this episode, we'll be doing a preview for the Man City versus Man United Premier League game that will be taking place on Sunday, which is match week 28. Without extending this any longer, let's get into the video. So, Mehulji, thank you for coming on, my man. How are you doing?
Thank you for inviting me. I'm doing great. You guys are doing a fabulous job, so I'm pretty excited for this one.
Thank you so much. For those of you guys who don't know, Mehul Gupta has a podcast of his own on Spotify. We'll be dropping a link to that in the description box, so go check it out. And without any further ado, let's get into the preview. Uh, Mehul, City have been performing really well this season. At the beginning of the season, we didn't think that uh, at this point, City would be sitting 15 or 16 points at the top. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think a lot of people counted out City too early. Like in November, I think I remember after the Spurs game, everybody was like that City are doing nothing this season. It's going to be a pretty trophyless, a pretty barren sort of season. And I remember telling some friends that, I think Chelsea were on top that time, and Chelsea had played a lot of easier teams then. And our entire December, January run was 6, 7 games is a pretty easy on paper, which we should have won. And I made a sort of prediction that by January end we're going to be top of the table. And of course, I mean, it coincidentally happened that we didn't lose a single game after that. And come now, we're just running away with the title. And I really didn't predict the Liverpool dip, how much they've sort of suffered due to their injuries. But all in all, I did sort of believe that City would come back because it was sort of a torrid start to the season. But then, of course, Guardiola changed a few things, and then now we're here looking at another title.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, City are
Yeah,
just running away with it. And then you say that you haven't lost a game, but you haven't actually even drawn a game since
yeah,
January.
yeah,
You've won
exactly.
all games. This is
Yeah,
probably the third longest win streak in Europe. Bayern
hmm.
Munich have the largest one, Real Madrid have the second largest, and City are about to equal Real Madrid's record if they beat Man United tonight or tomorrow
Yeah,
night. So,
yeah.
what are your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I think I always dread a derby. I mean, people are saying that City would probably steamroll over United because United had a pretty, lackluster performance against Palace. And City are obviously on a roll and nobody's stopping them. So people are saying that it's going to be an easy City win. But derbies, I mean, we've been seeing since so many years. Form goes out of the window. Where you are at, the table goes out of the window. How many points you clear goes out of the window. It's about bragging rights, and whoever is more motivated on the day probably gets the job done. And City are 15 points clear, so there or 14 points clear. So there can be a sort of complacency, and I am not the most optimistic City fan. I mean, I remember even when we were 3-0 up at Chelsea at halftime. I am one of those fans who can actually believe that probably a comeback can happen. So I have never been a very optimistic City fan all my life. So I always dreaded derby. I mean, I obviously hate losing to United, and I don't obviously believe that we will probably roll them over, even though I'd want to believe that. So I think derbies are always very tough, no matter what the
You've changed
situation is.
quite a lot because I remember when
Mm.
City won the title back in 2012, you were like, we'll
Mm.
go for another title. And I was like, Sir Alex Ferguson is there. Let him
Yeah. Mm.
make his magic. But then finally, City have had a lot more success. And since then,
Yeah.
Sir Alex Ferguson is retired.
Mm.
Uh, anyway, what do you think? Is this team better than the 17-18 team the last time you won the title?
Yeah, I've been getting that a lot, and I think we have to look at a lot of factors here. I mean, I don't think this team is better than the 17-18 team going forward. That 17-18 team played some of the most beautiful football any English team has ever played. I think this team is more efficient. And if
Right.
you obviously you look at the defensive record, and I think overall, I call it very efficient football, like I said, and it's not very attacking. And City enjoy defending. I have not seen in my life that City are relishing defending. You see
Right.
Diaz and Stones, they're high-fiving all the time. They're hugging each other. I mean, I haven't seen that since probably Company, but even with Company, we were incredibly defensively in that 2011-12 title-winning season. But since then, I've not really seen a very defensive-oriented City. And this season, we started off being defensive. We were conceding less goals, and we just had to amp up the attack a bit. And once that started happening, our defense was assured, our attack was scoring goals again, and it started clicking back again. So, in terms of overall playing, I feel this team is more efficient than the 17-18 team. But the in terms of watching them or in terms of appeal, I think nobody comes close to the Centurions team at all. I mean, they played some of the most incredible football. I mean, they broke every record. So that's
I know, I completely get your point
yeah,
because I
yeah,
believe that even now, when you had injuries to De Bruyne and injuries to
yeah,
Aguero, you guys were still winning games. But then I
yeah,
don't think that the team in 17-18 would have been able to handle that. Yes,
yeah,
this team is more efficient. I get the point, but
yeah,
this team, even though not so good attacking wise, I mean, just like you said, not so beautiful, but then it's just more
mhm,
efficient.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, Going further, do you think that City can do the quadruple? Because they are, they basically can do it. It's likely.
Yeah, that's like a question for every season, but I don't get into that. Obviously, uh, more than the quadruple, I think people just want to focus on the Champions League. City fans, everybody wants to win the Champions League, and I personally, am I'm just very indifferent now to the Champions League because of our recent exploits there. The fact that we've got out on goal difference, VAR decisions and all of that stuff. So it's kind of City fans I think have fallen out of love with the Champions League. And it's if you tell me that we're just going to win the league this season, I would take that any day. I
Right.
would be pretty happy with just winning the league comfortably, like how we're doing. And of course, probably take the next step in the Champions League, like Guardiola says. But of course, I know, he talks about the Premier League being a lot more difficult than the Champions League. But he extended his contract. Everybody knows that he extended because he wants to win the Champions League, and that's what his ultimate goal is for City, because he hasn't won since his Barcelona days. So he really wants it. He really wants the City fans to have it. So I think we're in the final of the Carabao. So and Spurs, given their history, I think we should be able to do that because Carabao is sort of our
Right.
cup, if you
Yeah.
talk about that. And we're in a good position in the FA Cup as well. So I mean, we're in March, so the quadruple sounds good. But when you're in April and the fixtures are coming thick and fast and all of that, so it's very difficult to win all four trophies, even with a squad of City side. I mean, there's a reason why it hasn't ever been done in English football.
Right. Absolutely. The
Yeah.
treble has only been done once.
Exactly, exactly. And that is
Yeah.
pretty belittled, right?
Yeah.
Because Sir Alex Ferguson said that it is absolutely impossible to even do the domestic treble in England. And City actually went on and did that. And
Yeah.
it is belittled. It's not very appreciated, of course, in the media or amongst rival fans because obviously of City's perception being a money club and all of that. But
Right.
in terms of just doing a domestic treble, it's a huge, huge feat. I mean, you look at Liverpool. This Liverpool side is being said as one of the greatest Premier League sides after their
Yeah.
performance in the last 3 years or so. But you see their cup performances and they've not done anything in the cup. So how does a team of that stature, of that quality, does not do well against probably lower division clubs or something like that? So it's very difficult to maintain consistency in all
You should
competitions.
probably have a conversation about that with Abhinav.
Yeah.
I'm not the right guy, but yeah.
Yeah.
So United did a double over City last season. Do you think that United can hurt City again? I mean, we did play a draw at the beginning of the
Yeah.
season, and now
Yeah.
this is the second game. So do you think
Yeah.
that United can hurt City? And if so, do you think that Pep will be able to cover those gaps?
Yeah, I think what Pep did at Old Trafford was that he could not have afforded to lose. And I think it was one of the most boring matches this season. And I think a lot of top six matches you'll agree that have been
Yeah,
boring. But that particular match was, I think, Pep is, wary of what threat United can pose on the counter attack. So he set up his team as very, calm on the ball. Uh, they did not take a lot of risks, and that this United team with the kind of pace they have up front, they can easily hurt you. That's what happened in both matches last season. That City probably went for the game and they
right.
were hurt on the counter and balls over the top with Martial and Rashford
Yeah,
running. Daniel James is back in the front foot, so he's going to be occupying one wing. So with that sort of pace and with Bruno Fernandes delivering balls, I think Guardiola will be wary of obviously that, but he'll try to keep more of the ball. And I think the more he's able to keep the ball, the more he can actually have his team hurt United on the counter or counter press them or something like that. So it's I think United can are totally capable of hurting. But I saw the Palace game and I don't know. It's just their motivation levels have clearly dropped. But I don't think that's going to be the case at the Etihad. They're going to come all guns blazing. I feel because it's a derby. Nobody is not motivated for the derby. So I mean, I think it could turn out that way. But I think Guardiola will have things up his sleeve how to, and I think we will get into that in the starting 11 of why I think Guardiola will set up how he'll set up to curb the United attack. So yeah,
and just like you said earlier, that you would be content with winning the Premier League only and not winning the Champions League. But
yeah.
what do you think is the consensus in the fan base? Because I'm pretty sure that everybody in England, I mean, City fans in England, really want to win the Champions League because the league for City now is like, yeah, we can win it every season. Let's look at the Champions League.
Yeah, and the older fans will be just okay with the Carabao Cup. The
Yeah,
kind of things they they tell and say. It's so much banter among the City community. I see on Twitter all of these guys. They're just like that. You know, just live whatever we are right now. It's like because City weren't like this at all in 15 years back or something like that. So it's just everything for them is a bonus. Of course, for us newer fans who just followed City for say a decade since the takeover. So we obviously want the Champions League more than anything else. But I personally, I think I don't speak for the City community when I say that I am okay with just the Premier League because I know the City community wants the Champions League more than ever. But I think obviously more than the City community, it's Guardiola who has to have the Champions League for his career because everybody's labeling him a fraud every now and then. He has to win the
absolutely. Because
Champions
he
League for
went to
himself.
Bayern
Yeah,
Munich, one of the best clubs in the world, and
yeah,
couldn't win the Champions
yeah,
League there. And now he
yeah,
spent almost
exactly.
1.5 billion with City and hasn't won it yet. So I think it's
Yeah,
more of a task for Pep rather than the
hmm,
players themselves also to
yeah,
win the
yeah,
Champions League. So yeah, going forward, just wanted to ask you one last question. Who do you
yeah.
think is, I mean, been the standout player this season for you because you have had a massive run, and I can pick out a few players, but from a City fan's perspective, what do you think?
I think there are a lot of candidates. Obviously, you can say Gondogan, who's really stepped up this season. You can
Right,
say Cancelo, who is really come on his own. You can say Stones, his resurgence. A lot of candidates there, but I think I have to say Cancelo because when he signed for City in that Danilo deal, City fans were
right,
very excited because that deal, Danilo plus 30 million for Cancelo was a pretty sweet deal. I mean, Cancelo
right.
was is one of the best right backs in the world, but he did not sort of translate that into his first season because obviously Walker has been the stalwart right back for Guardiola, and it's very difficult to replace him in that position. And so Cancelo played a lot of times at the left back position and all that, but it doesn't suit him that well as obviously his natural position. But this season, I mean, with the defense getting assured with Diaz and Stones, I think we're seeing a Cancelo we would have not predicted when he signed for City. I mean, he's almost playing like a midfielder. You know,
Right.
his role has been labeled as the Cancelo role, and it's something which mainstream football has never seen. That
Right.
your right back is almost creating the most amount of chances in the game. I mean, he's up there in terms of expected chances, in terms of chances created. So that's bonkers for a fullback. I mean, nobody's even labeling him as a fullback. You'll probably have him as a midfielder in FPL next season. So that sort of thing. So I think really he's come on his own, and I think Cancelo. I really expected a lot of things from him, and he's finally delivering those things. I think Gondovan has always shown patches, and I think
Right.
with Rodri getting more assured in that center defensive midfield position, like Rodri is no Fernandinho, right? Fernandinho can do everything on his own. He can tackle, he can break lines, he can pull off your passes. Rodri is young. He will take time to actually replicate Fernandinho, and I think he was
Right.
getting caught a lot of times last season. A lot of times teams would press Rodri, get the ball off him, hurt City on the counter. I think this season Rodri has been much more calmer, much more composed, and that has allowed Gondovan to go up further. And
Right.
Gondovan is taking those late darts into the box, which you would probably expect him to take because you've seen him in his Dortmund days, that kind of thing he used to do, almost like a Lampard-esque sort of role he plays for City now. It's all because Rodri, I think, has become more calm and composed in that defensive midfielder position. So I think Gondovan and Cancelo will be my two standout picks for player of the season for, of course, City. And of course, we can't not talk about Ruben Diaz. I mean, what a signing! What a signing! I didn't really expect Ruben Diaz to do what he's doing because I saw a couple of compilations on YouTube, and I
Right.
branded him as very rash. Um,
Right.
he was playing in the Portugal. He's playing in Portugal in the Premier Liga. He was pretty rash. A lot of penalties given, fouls, and all. I thought he's not a textbook Guardiola player. He's not. He's not Virgil van Dijk level when it comes to passing out from the back.
Yeah.
But
He's
in
more
terms of
like Marcus
leadership,
Rojo.
yeah, in terms of leadership, in terms of command, in terms of uplifting others around him, you've seen it with Stones. He's literally, gave him his career back, Diaz, and
Right.
I think Stones would not have been the same player if Diaz was not alongside him. So if you have that capability at 23 years of age, that you can actually change a city side, by scratch. They were not doing well, and then Diaz came and they suddenly stopped conceding goals. That doesn't happen normally. So testament to him and how Guardiola has got him into the side, and how he's he's going to be one of the best defenders in the world. And he's a contender for the young player of the year. I mean, you look at that man, and he
Right.
doesn't look 23. He's going to be here, at City for years if he wants to be. So I think it's a terrific signing, and I think these three players have been standout for City, bar none.
All right. Moving
Yeah,
forward, do you have any questions from me, or we could just
yeah, of
move
course.
to?
Yeah, of course. I
Yeah.
have a few questions for you. I think a lot of
Yeah.
United fans are talking about the entire Henderson De Gea debate. Now, of course,
Right.
De Gea has a little injury niggle, so he's out. I
It's
think
not
he's
an
not.
injury.
Okay, it's not an
Yeah.
injury. Okay, okay. I wasn't aware of that. So he's
Yeah.
not probably featuring in the derby. They're
Yeah. He
saying that
won't
Dean
feature for
Henderson
the
is
next
playing.
6 games because his girlfriend is pregnant, so he's gone back to Spain.
Okay, 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 okay,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. So
That's about
I
it.
think um, I think United fans are pretty excited to see Dean Henderson get a string of games. It's the first time he's actually going to start consecutive Premier League games.
Right.
So what is your concern? I mean, Daha has been there for so long, but of course he's had his share of problems, concerns, and now you have a budding sort of English goalkeeper who is going to be England's number one in the future. So what your perspective and what is the United community's perspective on the entire Henderson Dahaya debate?
Uh, I can't really tell you about what the United community's perspective is because we are always very divided,
Hmm.
even though we are United fans. But
Yeah.
anyway, uh, like you said, De Gea has been here for very long. He has been here since the Sir Alex Ferguson days, and he's won the Premier League with him. But like we've seen with him in the past, he's saved United a lot of points and he's won us a lot of matches. Uh, but now I think that he's coming towards the end of his career. He's almost 30 now, and within the next 2, 3 seasons, I think what will happen is United will try and phase De Gea out of this team and bring in Henderson. But think looking at it, I think that this might put a break on Henderson's development because he deserves to play in the first team.
Yeah.
He's a top goalkeeper. You can't say that he's sitting on the bench. You can't accept that he's sitting on the bench. So that is why I couldn't agree with the fact that United gave him such a massive contract because now when other teams will try to sign him, even if he wants to go, uh, we won't get the transfer fee. And if we try to loan him out, United will still have to bear his wages. So United usually get ourselves into very tough situations themselves, basically, because it's not us, it's Ed Woodward, who all of us hate. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think what will happen over the next 2, 3 seasons is that De Gea will be phased out of the team and Henderson will be brought into the first team. And then we can probably think about bringing in a second goalkeeper like Sergio Romero, who was a decent servant to the club because every time he was called upon, he made massive impact. He was one of the top goalkeepers. He had one of the best clean sheet records in a United shirt. So once Dyer is out of the team, I think it will be 2 seasons before Dyer is out of the team, and then Henderson can start playing.
Yeah, I think last season I also had a this concern for United that I thought that Ole, is too scared to drop the high. Like he was too scared
Right.
to put him out of the side, even after a couple of blunders here and there or mistakes. I remember the FA Cup semi-final, was it, where he made an error or something. So,
Mhm.
I think he should be level-headed to drop the higher and start somebody like Dean Henderson. I mean, United boasts two of the world's best goalkeepers. I mean, who has that sort of
Right.
those two goalkeepers in their ranks? Nobody, right? So, in terms of that, I think Ole could have been more braver last season. I think now the fact that he's getting his chances, he's really showing Dean Henderson that he is the future of Manchester United in their goal. I think it's the way forward. I think he's so young,
But last
he's
season we
hungry.
didn't have Henderson. Last season we had Romero because last season Henderson was at Sheffield, so we
Yeah,
couldn't have really given him a lot any game time. But
yeah.
this
No,
season,
I
what
meant
we've
that
seen is
he
that
didn't drop. I meant that he
yeah,
didn't drop the. Yeah.
right.
Pardon that I forgot that
I
obviously
think
Dean
the
Henderson was at
reason
Sheffield.
that he isn't dropping the
Mm.
high is because most of the goals that we've conceded this season are not the highest mistake, they are the defense's mistake.
Yeah,
I could blame a lot of goals on Harry Maguire and Victor Lindelof alone, not even the fullbacks. So De Gea has made a few mistakes here and there, but then he is still one of the best goalkeepers in the world. I wouldn't put him in the category of an Edison or an Allison at this moment, but he is capable of being at that level, and he has shown that for the past 5 or 6 years.
yeah. And next, I want to touch upon Donny van de Beek, and
Right,
he's like you said, I think he's probably dividing the United community. But I think every United fan wants him to play more. They want to
right.
see more. I thought he was such a smart signing, right? For that price money. He came from Ajax. He had a wonderful, spell at Ajax, and he was really exciting a lot of United fans. But he hasn't fit into that midfield. Because Ole obviously prefers a defensive midfielder than Pogba and Fernandes, and he sort of doesn't fit into that lineup. But then, what is the deal with Van de Beek, and why does Ole not, consider him more for matches?
What I think has been happening is that Donny van de Beek has been struggling to keep up with the pace of the Premier League. So even
Mm.
though he's a very good footballer, he's very technical because every Ajax player is very technical. And
Yeah,
uh, all we've seen that Donny van de Beek hasn't been performing at the level, even in the matches that played in, he hasn't performed at the level that you would expect him to. But then you could also make an argument where you say that he hasn't got a run of games, and that is why he hasn't
yeah,
performed at that level.
yeah,
But Donny van de Beek himself, I think, is not a number six. He's a number eight or a number 10. And those
yeah,
two
yeah.
positions have been filled. So you
Mm.
can't, I mean, I wouldn't say that Donny van de Beek is better than Pogba. And I wouldn't say that Donny van
Yeah,
de Beek is
of
better
course.
than Fernandez. So where do you
Mm.
put him? You can't put him in a six. You need a CDM in your team. So the
Mm.
only place where you can play him is when you're dropping Pogba. And since
Mm.
Pogba has been dropped, Donny van de Beek has been injured. So
Mm.
not dropped basically.
Mm.
Since Pogba has been injured, even Donny van de Beek
Mm.
got injured. So
Mm.
it's been really a stop go kind of situation for Donny van de Beek this season. But what I think is that Ole is being very cautious with him. I think that not this season he might not get a lot of opportunities, but next season he definitely will. Just like we saw
Yeah,
with Fred when
yeah,
Oli initially came in, Fred was not even getting a sniff in the starting 11, but now we see that he's one of Oli's favorite players. So probably behind the scenes, we might see Oli working on Donny van de Beek, and next season he really comes in his own because I think that Pogba will leave.
yeah. Of course, I think we should take into consideration that coming from the Eredivisie to the Premier League is not the
Right,
most easiest thing in the world. So I think Van de Beek, I really want to see him. I really like the guy. I really
right,
enjoyed his Champions League performances against Real Madrid and all of that. So I really want to see more of him. And in terms of the match on the weekend, uh, I think I was a Palace game and I was pretty surprised with the approach United took. I think that
right,
has been synonymous with the kind of approach they've taken versus the Big Six in those games. They've been
right,
very pragmatic. They've been very cautious. They've not really taken games by their collar,
right.
if I must say.
Yeah,
And that sort of thing is probably because they're scared of losing, so they don't want to concede and they don't want to score. So that is not a mentality where you're chasing this city side. I mean, you can't chase a city side with that sort of mentality
right,
that you can't afford to lose for a Big Six game, but you don't want to even go for the kill. So
right,
what is that sort of why do United play such you know like the entire attack evaporates against the Big Six?
right.
You know,
Yeah.
we saw against Chelsea, we saw in the game against City at Old Trafford. So why is that? Why is such a cautious approach being taken by Ole?
Right now, I mean, in what we saw in the Palace game was an exhausted United side
Yeah,
because we don't have a lot of options in attack at the moment. Martial's injured, Cavani was injured and just came back, and he didn't look like himself. Bruno
yeah,
Fernandes has played almost every game. Rashford has
yeah.
played almost every game. Greenwood is a top potential player, but he's still not a proper first teamer. We don't have a proper right wing. Dan James is not a proper right wing player. He also has potential, but in terms of a front four, we basically don't have two players available at any given point. We only have Fernandes and Rashford who have always been available, and they have been exhausted. They've played so much football.
Yeah.
They've played with injuries. So
Hmm.
I really don't know what uh, happens to them against teams like Palace, but then exhaustion is one thing. And in the games against the big teams, what I can say is that Oli is trying to do what he tried to do last season, which worked, which was be
Hmm.
pragmatic, try and hit them on the counter because yes, we have the pace. But I
Hmm.
completely agree with you on the fact that in games like these, when we're facing Crystal Palace, we need to go for the kill, and we haven't been able to do that.
Yeah. Suppose a United side, like the Chelsea game, they really went for it. They won that game. The entire momentum shifts then in their sort of favor. They want to then achieve more. They think that they can actually compete with the big sides and all that. So risking more, I feel, obviously more risk, more reward. I think United should do that at least in certain games because they've just scored one goal against the top six, which was a penalty in the 6-1 sort of
Game against Tottenham.
defeat against Tottenham. So and they're second. So a lot of fans are finding it appalling that how they're second when they've not actually performed against the big six at all. So that sort of speaks volumes about how even if they're second, even if they're the only team who're close to City, who've come close to City. But in terms of winning a title, they seem very far away. So how do you feel United can curb the gap with City in the transfer window or next season? How do you feel?
Uh,
What steps can Ole and the management take?
I don't think that the United can do anything because we've got Ed
Mm.
Woodward and the Glazers. Because no matter what players Ollie wants, the Glazers won't get him those. We've seen
Mm.
this since Sir Alex has left. Because Sir Alex was playing under the ownership of the Glazers, but Sir Alex was a genius, and no manager has come close to him. So what we saw with David Moyes, what we saw with Louis van Gaal, what we saw with Mourinho is exactly what we're seeing with Oli at the moment. Because
Mm,
you can't basically they go to the board with the players that they want and they don't get any of those. They get
mm.
players that the management thinks is right. The management
And
team
they end up
will
overpaying for them.
they're overpaying for them
Mm.
because they think that these are marketable players and United in turn will make a lot of money because
Yeah.
United right now in the transfer window act like a bank and not like a football club. So
Mm, mm,
in the summer when we saw that we couldn't get Jadon Sancho because he was too expensive for
mm,
United, but he was a marquee signing. So
mm.
United wanted him, but when we couldn't get him, we didn't go for a Ismail Sarr who we were looking at or an Adama Traore. Who did we go for? We did went for Edinson Cavani because he is a big name and he
Mm,
can bring
mm.
in a lot of money to the club. So United have seen this, United fans have seen this over and over again, where every summer we expect a lot, but nothing happens. If
Yeah.
you ask me right now what I would want to see, I would want to see us bring in a top CDM
Mm,
because the top CDM is very important. I would like us to bring in somebody who can partner Harry Maguire because Harry
mm,
Maguire,
mm.
even though he's been criticized a lot, has been putting in decent performances. Yes, we would
Yeah.
like to make fun of him because he
Mm,
is no matter what you say, we paid 80 million for him, right? And he
mm,
would always
mm.
have that over his head. And he's not
Yeah.
been performing like an 80 million defender. He has
Mm,
been performing like a decent defender. And like I said
yeah.
earlier, we need somebody in attack, a proper right winger, because we don't have one. Yes, we see that we've got in Amad Traore or Amad Diallo from
Mm,
Atlanta. He's 18, and
mm.
we hear stories that he's been doing really well in training. But I don't think that he is a first teamer and won't be a first
Yeah.
teamer anytime soon.
Yeah, of course. And I think a striker is also needed. Like you can't have Ighalo and Cavani and really depend on that. You need an out and out
Igalo's already
goal
left,
scorer.
and
Yeah.
Cavani. I think that United might stick with Cavani for another season because he brings in the experience. I'm really
Yeah.
frustrated with what Martial has done this
Yeah. Yeah.
season.
Mm.
But what I think with Martial is that I've said this over and over again that he's a very hot and cold player. When he's hot, he's really hot, and he'll keep
Yeah.
scoring. He'll continue scoring. But then I've also made a judgment about him is that when he has competition in the team, he's not able to perform. Like we saw when Ibrahimovic came in, he wasn't able to
Yeah.
perform. But as soon as Ibrahimovic left and
Mm.
Lukaku came in, so he wasn't able to perform again. And then once Lukaku left and Ighalo came in, he knew that he had that spot. Ighalo was a secondary striker and he started performing. Last season, we saw him get over 20 goals. But this season, when he saw that a top striker like Edinson Cavani has come in, he again has not been able to meet expectations.
Yeah. I think before we go to the starting lineups and predict that, I think one final question I would want to ask, which is probably a lot of divide between the City United fans about the PFF Player of the Year this season,
Right.
because City fans are saying that of course Diaz and Gundogan, we have a lot of contenders, but of course Bruno Fernandes statistics are unbelievable and they're just
Right.
mad. It almost sometimes makes me pull my hair out seeing that how he doesn't fail to perform every time.
Yeah.
But obviously, the only criticism which he's being also getting is the fact that he's not performed in the big six games. I think it
Yeah.
has a lot to do with again United's approach in
United,
that
the
game
whole team
rather
not
than
doing it.
Bruno Fernandes being single-handedly picked out as
Right.
to not being performing. So I think that will only change if Ole sort of goes, and I think he has to go for the game against City if he has any chance, if a miraculous chance of catching City, they have to go for it. So I think it should be an open game. I think, and we're expecting goals and a lot of fun and drama. I think.
Let's see, man. I mean, even I hope that there are goals in the game and United are able to score a few. But like you
Yeah.
just mentioned, that Bruno Fernandes has not performed against the top six, but that is also because United haven't turned up. And in those games, even if we see a spark of brilliance, it's only from Bruno Fernandes, it's not from
Yeah.
anybody else. Last season
Mm.
also, you must have seen as soon as Bruno Fernandes came in, the first goal that United scored against City was a dink over the top by Bruno
Yeah.
Fernandes to
Yeah.
Martial. So any sort of positive that United do on the field, any sort of positive football that they play has come through Fernandes. So I think that he definitely deserves the Premier League, sorry, the PFA award. because it's much easier to perform in a City team. If Bruno
Mm,
Fernandes was in the City side, I believe that his numbers would have been even better than they are in
mm,
the United side, because he has a lot. He would have had a lot of better players around him.
yeah.
I think that a player like Bruno Fernandes would thrive if he has a world-class striker ahead of him. Would thrive if he
Yeah.
has somebody at the right wing. The only player who has been supporting Fernandes this season has been Rashford, who
Mm.
also hasn't been at the top of his game. So I think that Bruno does deserve the PFA.
Yeah, I think to draw parallels, I think last season, City obviously did not have the best of seasons, and the only player who was playing for City was De Bruyne. His
Right,
statistics were mad. He equaled Thierry Henry's record for the assists. He had 10 to 12, I think, goals. So a 30 goal involvement season for De Bruyne, who's normally, not really in terms of goal scoring. He's not known for his goal scoring. He's known for the
right.
assists. He had a lot of goals last season. This season he has three or four, five goals, hardly any goals, most of them from the penalty spot. So to draw a parallel that he was carrying that City team last season, and if he came, any close to Liverpool, it was because of him. I think that is what's happening with Bruno, and De Bruyne ended up winning the PFL Player of the Year. So in terms of individual performance, I think Bruno could actually win it, but I think I want to see him perform against the Big Six to come to a conclusion that he can
Right.
actually thrive in the Big Six games and he can actually produce numbers then. And then I think it will be no. I think it'll be close between maybe Diaz, maybe Gondovan, but I think it's going to be Diaz or Bruno, and I think Diaz is going to win the Young Player of the Year, and they will give Bruno the PFL Player of the Year. That's just my
Uh,
prediction. Yeah, yeah.
all right. So moving forwards, let's just get into the predicted lineups. Do you want to see mine first, or do you want to explain your first?
We'll go with yours first.
All right. So let's go with this first. Are you able to see it?
Yeah, yeah,
All right. So as you see, I told you that De Gea is not playing. He's
yeah,
gone back to Spain. So we'll see Henderson starting. Uh, on the fullback positions, Shaw has been brilliant this season. I would say he has been the best left back in the league this season only.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, Harry Maguire and Victor Lindelof, because I think they're Ollie's favorite partnership at centre back. And
yeah,
on right back, we see Van Bissaka. He has been really good this season again. Although attacking wise, he hasn't performed really well, but he is the defensive rock that we need uh, in the lineup. And then
yeah,
we can see that I've put in that Fred and McTominay only because Fred and McTominay both would not stop running. Both would be fast. I wouldn't put. The only reason that I didn't put Matic in there is because he's slow and he's gotten old. So
mm,
Fred and McTominay would play, and McTominay does have a good shot on him, like you
yeah,
must remember. So, and the front four just calls upon itself. Fernandes would play. We can't drop him. Rashford would play. We can't drop him. Cavani, I would like to give him some more time to rest after his injury, but we really don't have anybody. We can't play Greenwood up top against a great City side. And
yeah.
on the right wing, I was confused either to put Dan James or Greenwood, but I think that Oli would go with Dan James just because City would leave space in behind and Dan James could run into it.
Yeah. So I think not a lot of changes from the Palace game. I think
Right.
when we
The
look at
Palace
it,
game, Greenwood played and James didn't, so I think that James would come in. And Matic played instead of McTominay, and Bailly played instead of Lindelof.
yeah, yeah.
Rest of the
I
team
think
basically stays.
to see the City side, I mean, it's just impossible to pick it any
Yeah,
given given the
this is
resources.
your predicted lineup.
Yeah. So I'll explain why I predicted this particular lineup. I think a lot of people are saying that Zinchenko is going to come back into the lineup because he hasn't started a couple three games. But I feel why Guardiola would prefer a Walker is to curb that Rashford sort of run behind. And I think
Right.
Walker, if anybody can, actually match Rashford, it is Walker, and he has such a high recovery pace. So I think
Right.
he would want to go with a Walker, and I think that back line would sort of become a back three with Cancelo dropping into a midfield and stringing passes with the midfielders. So and obviously Walker has played at centre back on occasions for City. So I think uh, City become almost like a three-man sort of defense when Walker and Cancelo play. And in terms of the midfield, obviously a big dilemma. I think Rodri starts, and but I think Fernandinho played really well in the Carabao Cup game at Old Trafford. He was excellent in that game. But I feel Rodri's been doing really well. I think he's undroppable right now. So Rodri starts. I think Gondwan has not started, did not start the last game. So he, I think, comes back into the starting lineup for this one. And it's between Bernardo and De Bruyne for the RCM sort of position. I've gone for De
Right.
Bruyne. Why? Because Bernardo has played a string of games. I think he needs the rest. I think there's a lot of divide amongst the City fan base that we play better without De Bruyne. Like, and I tell you why that is. Why why people are saying that, because when Bernardo Gondovan plays, they're not very adventurous. They like to have a lot of touches. They play the pass when it's perfect to play the pass, and when De Bruyne plays, he takes a lot of risk because he can do things which no other player can do. He can play those outlandish passes. Like if you saw the City Wolves game, he actually he did an overhead kick pass to Jesus from his own half. I mean,
Right.
he's a freak sometimes. So those sort of things, I think, with De Bruyne, because he plays with such risk, there's a chance of the opposition getting the ball, him losing the ball a lot of times, and then City facing a counter attack. So that is why Bernardo Gondovan fits so well, because they like to keep the ball more, they keep more touches. I think De Bruyne is more just adventurous, but I think in a game against United, we've seen how De Bruyne does against United. He really comes up against United. And I think Guardiola will start De Bruyne. In terms of the attack line, um, Mahrez had one of the best games in a City shirt against Wolves. So you'd think that he's undroppable, but I think Guardiola would get in Foden for this one because he hasn't started. He didn't start the last couple of games. So Foden will come, I think, at the left wing position with Sterling moving onto the right. And I think Guardiola likes that sort of combination with Foden and Sterling. When Mahrez plays, obviously Sterling goes onto the left side, and
Yeah, but
Jesus also
Mahrez always has been in Luke
yeah.
Shaw's pocket, so even I think that he won't start.
Maybe, yeah. But Mahrez played a really fantastic game, so I won't be surprised if he starts. But I think Foden comes back for this one, and Jesus leads it. A lot of City fans are saying because of Aguero's record in the derby, but I think it's still time since till we see the actual Aguero. He's still ailing from that long layoff injury, the virus, and all of that. So Jesus starts this one. And I think this is going to be the lineup. But with Pep, you never know. The Pep rule comes 1 hour before the match, and everybody is just pulling their hair out. So this is my predicted lineup, but of course anything can happen.
Right, absolutely. And right before we pack up, I would just want to know what are your score predictions for the game?
I think it's going to be 2-0 City.
2-0 City. Even I think the same. It's going to be 2-0 to City. I don't think that United will be able to uh,
Yeah.
even draw the game. I think that we might get a goal, but there are very
Yeah.
slim chances. The only
It's all
way that
about
United,
Yeah, it's all about momentum. I think, like I
right,
said, United could go for the game because it's do or
right.
die for them, and City could really hurt them. If somebody comes at City, then if you poke the bear, then they will eat you up.
Exactly. And the only way that United might get a point out of this game is to stop City scoring, which has been very difficult for any team this
Yeah,
season. So
yeah,
I think that will be it's a nailed on loss for United, a 2-0 loss for United. So I'm just trying to sleep through next into next week.
yeah, yeah,
All right.
yeah.
And before we wrap up, I had to ask you this. Do you think that City will sign Messi next season?
I hope so. But I think there's a lot of divide between us signing Haaland and Messi, and a lot of people are choosing Haaland. And as
Right.
much as I want to have Haaland, you can't overlook the opportunity to have Lionel Messi in your side. And given that he's really picked up in the last couple of weeks, Barca have had some fantastic results recently, and Messi's picked up. So if you have the chance of signing Messi, just sign.
Yeah,
Messi.
Messi is Messi, right?
Messi is Messi at the end of the day. And I think if Messi does come to City, it's obviously more of a commercial sort of PR move rather
Right.
than a footballing move. And it'll take City to heights off the pitch as well, maybe as on the pitch.
Absolutely. Having Lionel Messi play for a club like City,
Yeah,
who have had recent success, but for the history of the club, it would be really massive to have a player like Messi in their team.
of course.
Right. So let's wrap up now. For people who have watched this video, thank you so much for watching. Make sure that you like our video, subscribe to the channel, and make sure you follow us on Instagram. I'd also make sure that I drop Mehul's Instagram in the bio, in the description, and make sure you follow him. That's about it for this video. Thank you for watching. See you next week.